Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. I begin in the name of the creator of heaven and the earth. We ask him to bless this program because this is the Final Reality coming back to you again. It's supposed to be the first Saturday each month, but we missed. This is not the first Saturday. This is not even the first Sunday. This is the last Sunday in the month of May. So moving into a new month according to the Gregorian calendar. And we already moved into the new month for the lunar calendar a few days ago after the ending of fasting of Ramadan. Okay, we know this is very strange times we're in these days with this coronavirus thing going on. Then we have things worse than that. Racism and plain evilness is worse than coronavirus because it's still killing people physically, it's killing them physically, it's killing them spiritually, and it's killing them mentally. Racism. So this evening, we're going to be talking about a few things in regards to that, in regards to the death and the murder of this last African-American man that was killed. As you all know about this, it's all over the news, it's all over the place, it's all over areas, it's over the world. The world knows about this now, about the injustices that is happening in America. So we're going to touch on that a bit, even though we know it's been covered by all the news organizations, the news groups, the real news groups and some of the fake news groups and some of the different things that are happening going on with this particular incident, which is a very dreadful, heinous crime taking place. And Islam says something to the effect, if you kill one person unjustly, it's like you kill all of humanity. So one person was killed unjustly, and it's like all of humanity was killed. So before we get into the media, I want to let you know we have a special guest, like I said, or should have said earlier, we have a special guest named Mickey. She's going to join us, and she's got some information for us as well. We always have good information on the Final Reality. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to take a 10-second break. This is the Final Reality. I'm Sufa Hashim. Welcome. In the background, you heard Ansaruddin, the helpers of Islam, the helpers of the way, helpers of religion. That's the Nasheed group that they have produced, and they're doing a lot of good things. So I'm giving them credit for Ansaruddin, the helpers of Deen. Like I said before I get into with our new guest, not get into it, but approach her subject. I'm just going to give an explanation about it. Sometimes I give an explanation about what Islam is about, real briefly, so the listening audience will know. Those people that are not Muslim, they have an idea what Islam is about. But in this radio program, Final Reality, we don't just cover things about Islam. We cover a myriad of topics. If it has anything to do with human beings or people, even sometimes animals, we're going to talk about it. We're going to address the issue. We're going to broach the issue and see what we can get done. So we know Islam is based on 5 pillars. The first pillar is called Shahadatain, or the 2 declarations of faith, which is there's no God but God, the Almighty, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of God, sent to mankind by the Almighty, who we call Allah. Some call him Allah, some call him Dios, some call him Elohim, some call him Yahweh, some call him Jah. Whatever you call him, I always like to let people know that he still is who he is. He is the creator. He is Allah. He's the Almighty. He created us through our parents, Adam and Eve, and from them all the way down to where we are right now. So we all are related, believe it or not, realize it or not. We're related because we had the original same parents. So don't forget that. If we could remember that and think about that, I think we'd probably be less hateful towards each other. But like I said, those called the Shahadatain, belief in the declaration there's only one God, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, is his message that he sent to mankind. We have to pray what's called salat. We call it prayer, loosely translated salat, as we pray 5 times a day in a particular way, in a particular direction, at a particular time. That's called salat. Then you have what's called zakat, or giving to the poor. It's 2.5% of our savings over the year has to be given to the poor people, who particularly this particular what zakat is called is they call it loosely translated poor due. Well, this is something that's due to the poor. The poor of the Muslims is given are taken care of with zakat, but other people non-Muslim are well can receive money from the Muslims at this particular time of year or any time of year. That's called sadaqah. So that's 2 different things. Sadaqah is charity, and that's given to anyone and everyone. Zakat is particularly for the Muslims, the poor Muslims. Okay. And we have what's called Hajj. The Hajj is the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. We go to Mecca and we visit the city of Medina, the last place of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is part of our religion. We have to do this at least once in our lifetime. Okay, that's called the Hajj. I did that, thanks to the Almighty. I was allowed to do Hajj in 2018. So we have Salat, Zakat, Hajj, and we have what's called Summer Ramadan, or fasting the month of Ramadan, which just finished, like I said, some days ago. We finished fasting, where we fast from sun up to sundown. We abstain from drinking, eating, and conjugal relations with our spouses from sun up to sundown. Once the sun has set, then you go about your normal, average daily things, all right, eating, drinking, and so on and so forth, right? But this is done for spiritual purification. This is done for spiritual strength. This is done to get some type of inkling, a little small inkling of how people feel who don't have food to eat, and they can't break their fast. But we're fast, we can break our fast. So that is what Summer Ramadan, or fasting in the month of Ramadan. So we had what's called 2 declarations of faith: fasting in the month of Ramadan, performing a Hajj, giving to the poor, zakat, and praying 5 times a day. So that was a brief introduction to Islam, and now we're going to get into a conversation with our guest. And Mickey, are you there?
Yep.
All right, welcome. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to talk about the so-called urban legend that the CIA sprayed New York subways with LSD in the 60s. I'm here to tell you that that's absolutely true. I got the Freedom of Information Act in 1980, and that verified the fact that it was true. There's a New York Post and New York Times article on Google that also back it. What happened? Excuse me? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what happened was CIA wanted to have some kind of drug that would put people in the mood to tell them all their secrets. They didn't want to go through all the tests and everything with known people. They decided to use unknown people who didn't know that they were being drugged, and people who didn't know what happens when you're drugged with LSD. In 1964, they would send agents randomly down to the New York subway system. They would get in cars with crowded people, and they would use an aerosol and spray the car. It only takes 15 micrograms of LSD to affect a person. So how they were doing it, it wasn't even noticed by the other people. And the thing that makes it horrible is that they enjoyed doing it. They enjoyed seeing people freak out. They also started this in 1953. They were doing it right along. They never kept accurate notes because some of them were on LSD.
Wow.
So they had a few that would go into cars and go down 42nd Street and spray out into the crowd, and a car would be behind them and drop somebody off so they could notice how long it takes for the drug to work and how people would freak out. The thing about LSD is that if you're in a happy mood and everything's going fine, you'll have a good trip. It'll just make you laugh, and you'll see colors, and your mind expands. Like all of a sudden you're thinking about things that you never thought of before. However, if you're not in a good mood, if you're anxious about something, you have a bad trip, and you think everybody's out to get you, and you may attack somebody. A couple of times, people were killed because of this. And the CIA agents didn't think that was a problem. They called it collateral damage. They also did that to the U.S. Army. They took people that were going into the U.S. Army and gave them LSD without them knowing it, and interrogated them to see if they could break them. And sometimes it took days, and over 20% of those people didn't go into the Army, they went into a mental institution.
Wow.
They also went into prisons and tried it with prisoners. Strangely, they only tried it with black prisoners. Documentation stated these 15 black prisoners were given LSD in the water that they had for dinner, and they were left in their cells to do, whatever happened. And most of them had bad trips because they were in jail.
Mm-hmm. In a bad situation.
It was, they enjoyed it so much. It's horrible. They did this until 1973, when President Ford got wind of it and tried to close it down. Of course, most of the records were deleted, but some rose to the surface, and that's the ones that I had gotten, and I guess that the New York Post and the Times also received. They also had another thing that they did was they would hire prostitutes to pick up men and bring them to this house in the village, and it would be a ground floor apartment, and there would be one next to it with a two-way mirror, and the prostitutes would give the men the LSD, and then the agents would be on the other side drinking cocktails and observing it. This is not an urban legend. This really happened. This is their reasoning for it was that they didn't want to go through all the paperwork, and they wanted to find a way that they could get secrets out of Russians or anybody else we were against.
So they tested on African American men for the most part, right?
Yep. In the prisons, that's the only ones they tested.
Okay.
For African American men.
That sounds like the Tuskegee Tuskegee experiment they did with African Americans that were locked up in prison. When they you heard about that, right? With the syphilis, right? They gave some syphilis and then didn't give them anything to treat it, just to see how they were acting, how long they would live, and things like that. People don't know these things are happening. People don't know that these things are happening, that happen and are still happening, strange things like that. And people make movies about it in Hollywood, and people, oh, that's a nice movie, that's a good movie, I like that movie. But that stuff will never happen. But in reality, these movies are based on reality.
Oh, the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was one of the main characters in this, because he would have parties and sneak LSD to his guests.
Wow.
They say that he's the start of the LSD revolution for the hippies in the 60s. It wasn't
Timothy Leary. No, they say it was Timothy Leary, but it wasn't him. It's the author, the guy of the one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. It was him. They must have paid him well.
No, he took LSD and he liked it. But the thing is, with the prisoners, is none of them were in a good mood. None of them had a good environment.
Right.
So they did it knowing that they would have a bad trip. and it can flip you out, really. You know.
Crazy. But it's still happening, so people shouldn't be surprised. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's reality. You have the paperwork, the documentation. What did it take, like 30 years before they released it? Or more?
It was released like in 2007, 2012. The History Channel had a half-hour show on it. I can send you a film about showing the soldiers on LSD laughing like
Hysterical.
they had no mind.
Right.
I can't show it to you today. But I have all the paperwork to back it up. And if you go to Google and Google U.S. government LSD, you will find the same paperwork that I found today.
Sheesh.
So like I said, I saw the Freedom of Information Act. So it could be, things could be happening today. They were dissolved. Nobody got in trouble. They stayed with one of them that was head of the narcotics division for a couple of years. There was no repercussions, and people died.
People are still dying from strange things like that. People not knowing why. Even this coronavirus thing is very strange and peculiar, and to say the least, strange. How it just how it's just affecting the majority of people. Is affecting the people of color, particularly African Americans, and the elderly.
Right.
It's really crazy. So that's not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but think about it, people. Use your brains. So so I appreciate that information. I'm sure you got a lot more, but we're gonna try to touch on real quick this situation with George Floyd, his killing, and what's happening right now as we're speaking all over the country, and it's making big headlines. It's making news all over the world in actuality, because people they're tweeting and sending shouts out to people in America, that they're behind it, they're with us, things like that, because they know how the injustice rolls here in America. Unfortunately, it's a great country otherwise, but as far as oppressing people and getting what they want, they're big for that. That's the thing. But anyways, you all know that George Floyd was killed, another African American was killed, and the good thing about technology, I'm not a big crazy super technology fan, but that was recorded on a cell phone, a few cell phones, body cams and so on and so forth like that. So the information and the proof was right there. They say the proof was in the pudding, the proof was right there, because they start out saying, okay, he was resisting arrest. Then somebody has the video where he wasn't resisting arrest. They're bringing him out of the car. He's very compliant, things like that. And then this guy goes into doing his thing, choking him to death.
Well, I don't understand why they would keep him 10 minutes on the ground with the cop's knee on his neck.
Exactly.
There was 4 cops there. Somebody could have brought him to the station.
That's right. And I'm glad you said it, because I read, somebody had sent me an article, I'm trying to see if I can find it now, about the other cops not saying anything. Right? There's one particular cop, now this happened in Buffalo, I'm trying to find an article. It said, okay, here's a headline. Buffalo cop loses job and pension after she intervenes with fellow officer choking a suspect. Let me see if I can pull that article up. Do a real brief thing with it quick. But this happened a few years ago. But she's still fighting the case now. They fired her. They took her pension. She has no pension. She's a single parent. So this thing is not coming up now. Maybe I'll give you a brief synopsis of what it was. Here we go. Buffalo cop loses job after pension after she intervened with fellow officer choking a suspect. Former officer Carol Horn lost her job and was charged with obstruction after she intervened while a fellow officer punched and choked an arrested man. Okay. In Buffalo, New York, a former police officer is fighting for a pension after being fired from the city's police department for interfering with another officer she claims was abusing an arrested suspect. Carol Horn was fired from the force in 2006 and charged with obstructing another cop during an arrest over domestic dispute. Let's see. Horn claims that fellow Buffalo officer Gregory Katowski was abusing a suspect who had already been cuffed and placed under arrest, and he was handcuffed in the front and he was sideways and being punched in the face by this officer Katowski, explained Horn. Horn said that she intervened when she saw what this cop was doing, and this Okay, this. Okay, here. In cover. She said. She intervened. Okay. She intervened. She saw him beginning to choke the man. She said, "I'm like, Greg, you're choking because I thought whatever happened in the house, he was still upset about it, so he didn't stop choking him. I just grabbed his arm from around Neil Mack's neck," said Horn. ABC reported that Katowski then turned and punched her in the face. She said she needed the bridge of her nose replaced after the blow. The obstruction charge against Horn stated that she jumped on Officer Katowski's back and or struck him with her hands. However, in his own testimony, he said she never jumped, she never got on top of me. This other officer was beating up the other guy and then punched her. Horn, a mother of 5, has lost every appeal to date, but continues to seek a pension for 19 years of police service. She was a police officer for 19 years, time to retire, and just around that time, they took her pension and fired her. The City of Buffalo Common Council passed the case to the New York State Retirement System to be reviewed. Okay, so Nemo, Go ahead.
Let me ask you, she didn't go through internal affairs, they didn't go through the process. It took, Lincoln freed slaves in 1865.
Right, so they say.
And we didn't get the Civil Rights Act until 1964, 99 years later.
Imagine that.
And we're still not following it.
Mm-hmm. True indeed. True indeed. So all that bureaucracy is for a reason. They say they had the checks and balances to keep the country in line and keep the people running the country in line. But we still have these other strange things that happen. You have to follow bureaucracy. You have to follow the so-called protocol. And the protocol, like you said, it took 99 years for something like that with the so-called freeing of the slave thing. So all this stuff is like, and it's disheartening sometimes to people. Look at what happened with the Native Americans. This is their country. You know what I'm saying? And the Europeans came from England, and they said, "Oh, we like this place. We're going to discover this place." So they came here. The natives they accepted it. Let them come in. They showed them how to plant corn. They showed them how to do this, how to live and survive in this country. And I think their thinking was, okay, we'll take this now. We'll take your children. We'll take your wives. We'll kill you. We'll give you these smallpox-laden blankets, you know, and in other words, we're going to decimate your race, and which they actually did. This place was teeming with Native Americans. Look how many Native Americans are there. If there are the ones that are still here, they're on a reservation that's squalid. They have a high suicide rate, have a high alcoholism rate, they have a high diabetes rate. So look what they did for them, and this was their country. So people come to, hey, go back to your country, go back where you came. You go back to where you came from. You know what I'm saying? People told me things like that, and I told them a few things.
The Europeans were conquerors, and they acted just as barbaric as
anyone.
The Romans did when they went to England.
Right. So they just
killing everybody.
They just followed suit. Yeah, follow suit. So that's pretty crazy, and it still goes on to today. What happened once they came to America, they became Americans. They came up with the doctrine called manifest destiny, where they were saying that it's interesting. Back up a little bit. It's interesting that I read about this when I was in school. It's one of the things that I definitely remembered in school. Manifest destiny. I will never forget that. And I was like I think elementary school when they talked about manifest destiny. That's where the Europeans thought that, okay, well, this is our God-given right, and we have to go over take the whole take this whole country over. And actually, I didn't want to take the whole world over. They get that mad and they talk about Hitler, what he tried to do, or what the other so-called conquerors tried to do. But the Europeans that came to America and became Americans did the same exact thing. So this stuff has to stop one way or the other. But we could talk about this for days, days in a row. You know what I'm saying? We have to do it again though. But
okay.
I definitely appreciate you coming on, and I definitely appreciate the listening audience out there. So stay tuned. I'm sorry it took me so long to get back with the final reality, but we're back here again. And Mickey, I appreciate your help and your information. So send me the information if you can by email or wherever you want to send it to. I appreciate it. All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. This is the final reality. Thank you. We'll see you again. Keep those listeners on. Listening ears. Do not give them up. Do not believe everything that you hear and see. Investigate. For sure. For sure. For sure. Stay strong. Pray for world peace. Pray for this virus to leave. Pray for racism to die and leave. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.